The number one problem that keeps people from winning today is lack of belief in themselves. Once said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. In fact, the mind is such a powerful instrument, it can deliver to you literally everything you want. But you have to believe that what you want is possible. You get what you expect. Scientists used to believe that humans responded to information flowing into the brain from the outside world. But today, they're learning instead that we respond to what the brain, on the basis of previous experience, expects to happen next. Doctors, for example, studying the effect of knee surgery, assigned patients with sore, worn-out knees to one of 3 surgical procedures: scraping out the knee joint, washing out the joint, or doing nothing. During the nothing operation, doctors anesthetized the patient, made 3 incisions into the knee as if to insert their surgical instruments, and then pretended to operate. 2 years after surgery, patients who underwent the pretend surgery reported the same amount of relief from pain and swelling as those who had received the actual treatments. The brain expected the surgery to improve the knee, and it did. Why does the brain work this way? Neuropsychologists who study expectancy theory say it's because we spend our whole lives becoming conditioned. Through a lifetime's worth of events, our brain actually learns what to expect next, whether it eventually happens that way or not. And because our brain expects something will happen a certain way, we often achieve exactly what we anticipate. This is why it's so important to hold positive expectations in your mind. When you replace your old negative expectations with more positive ones, when you begin to believe that what you want is possible, your brain will actually take over the job of accomplishing that possibility for you. Better than that, your brain will actually expect to achieve that outcome. You got to believe you can be anything you want to be if only you believe with sufficient conviction and act in accordance with your faith. For whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. A pitcher struck out a batter to win the World Series title. An image of elation on the mound was captured, an image few people knew was played out exactly as he had planned it. When asked about his experience on the mound that day, it was as if I'd been there 1,000 times before. When I was growing up, I would pitch to my father in the backyard. We would always get to where it was the bottom of the 9th in the World Series with 2 outs and 3 men on base. I would always bear down and strike them out. Because he had conditioned his brain day after day in the backyard, the day eventually arrived where he was living that dream for real. His reputation as a positive thinker had begun 7 years earlier during a championship season when he coined the phrase, "You got to believe," during one of the team's meetings. That team, in last place in the division in August, went on to win the league pennant and reach Game 7 of the World Series. Another example of his always optimistic, "You got to believe" attitude was the time while he was a spokesman for a youth league that he said kids should practice autographing baseballs. This is a skill that's often overlooked. And then he smiled his infectious smile. Believe in yourself and go for it. Sooner or later, those who win are those who think they can. Someone believed in himself. In fact, he believed so strongly in his abilities that he won a national kickboxing title just 6 weeks after being introduced to the sport. As a prior All-American and judo team captain, he had always dreamed of winning a national title. He had worked hard. He was good at his sport, but repeated injuries over multiple seasons had continually denied him his dream. So when a friend called one day to invite him to watch in the National Kickboxing Championships 6 weeks away, he instantly decided to join at the competition because he had never been in any kind of striking competition before. He asked where the best trainers could be found. He traveled to a tough neighborhood to learn from boxing coaches who had trained gold medalists. And after 4 grueling hours a day in the ring, he put in more time conditioning in the weight room. To make up for his lack of time in the sport, his trainers focused on exploiting his strengths instead of making up for his weaknesses. He didn't want to merely compete. He wanted to win. When the competition day at last arrived, he defeated 3 highly acclaimed opponents before making it to the finals. As he anticipated what he would have to do to win in the final match, he closed his eyes and visualized defeating his opponent in the very first round. Later, he said that most people fail not because they lack the skills or aptitude to reach their goal, but because they simply don't believe they can reach it. He believed and won. It helps to have someone else believe in you first. When a 20-year-old showed up at a training center, he had in his pocket the business card of a businessman who believed in his Olympic dream. He was there to learn the sport of luge, a sport that 9 of 10 aspirants give up after the first season. Almost everyone breaks more than one bone before mastering this 90-mile-per-hour race against time in an enclosed mile-long downhill track of concrete and ice. But he had a dream, passion, a commitment not to quit, and the support of his friend back home. When he got back to his room after the first day of training, he called his friend. "This is nuts. My side hurts. I think I broke my foot." "That's it. I am going back to soccer." His friend interrupted him. "Get in front of a mirror." "Oh, what?" I said, "Get in front of a mirror." He got up, stretched the phone cord, and stood in front of a full-length mirror. "Now repeat after me, no matter how bad it is and how bad it gets, I'm going to make it." He felt like an idiot staring at himself in the mirror. So in the most wimpy, wishy-washy way possible, he said, "No matter how bad it is and how bad it gets, I'm going to make it." "Seaman, say it right. You're Mr. Olympic, man. That's all you ever talk about. Are you going to do it or not?" He started getting serious. "No matter how bad it is and how bad it gets, I'm going to make it." Again, "No matter how bad it is and how bad it gets, I'm going to make it." And again and again and again. About the fifth time he said it, he thought, "Hey, this feels kind of good. I'm standing a little bit straighter." By the 10th time he said it, he jumped up in the air and shouted, "I don't care what happens. I'm going to make it. I can break both legs. Bones heal. I'll come back and I will make it. I will be an Olympian." It's amazing what happens to your self-confidence when you get eyeball to eyeball with yourself and you forcefully tell yourself what you're going to do. Whatever your dream is, look at yourself in the mirror and declare that you are indeed going to achieve it, no matter what the price. He made that declaration and it changed his life. He went on to compete in 3 separate winter games in the luge, and he's currently training for another Winter Olympics, where he will be 43 years old, competing against athletes half his age. Principle 5, believe in yourself. You weren't an accident. You weren't mass-produced. You aren't an assembly line product. You were deliberately planned, specifically gifted, and lovingly positioned on the earth by the master craftsman. If you are going to be successful in creating the life of your dreams, you have to believe that you are capable of making it happen. You have to believe you have the right stuff, that you are able to pull it off. You have to believe in yourself. Whether you call it self-esteem, self-confidence, or self-assurance, it is a deep-seated belief that you have what it takes, the abilities, inner resources, talents, and skills to create your desired results. Believing in yourself is an attitude. Believing in yourself is a choice. It is an attitude you develop over time. Although it helps if you had positive and supportive parents, the fact is that most of us had run-of-the-mill parents who inadvertently passed on to us the same limiting beliefs and negative conditioning they grew up with. But remember, the past is the past. There is no payoff for blaming them for your current level of self-confidence. It's now your responsibility to take charge of your own self-concept and your beliefs. You must choose to believe that you can do anything you set your mind to, anything at all, because, in fact, you can. It might help you to know that the latest brain research now indicates that with enough positive self-talk and positive visualization, combined with the proper training, coaching, and practice, anyone can learn to do almost anything. Of the hundreds of super successful people interviewed for this and other books, almost every one of them said, "I was not the most gifted or talented person in my field, but I chose to believe anything was possible. I studied, practiced, and worked harder than the others, and that's how I got to where I am." If a 20-year-old can take up the luge and become an Olympic athlete, a college dropout can become a billionaire, and a dyslexic student who failed 3 grades can become a best-selling author and television producer, then you too can accomplish anything if you will simply believe it is possible. If you assume in favor of yourself and act as if it is possible, then you will do the things that are necessary to bring about the result. If you believe it is impossible, you will not do what is necessary and you will not produce the result. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The choice of what to believe is up to you. Someone failed 1st, 4th, and 10th grades. He couldn't read and comprehend like other kids in his class could. He would spend 5 hours with his mother studying for a test and then fail it. When he asked his friend who got an A how long he had studied for the test, he replied, "I didn't." He concluded that he just wasn't intelligent. But I simply decided, as an act of will, to put it out of my mind. I simply refused to think about it. Instead, I focused my energies on what I was good at, and that was football. If it hadn't been for football, which I excelled at, I don't know what would have happened to me. I got my self-esteem from playing sports. putting all his energy into football. He earned interscholastic honors as a running back. From football, he learned that if he applied himself, he could achieve excellence. Later, he was able to transfer that belief in himself to his career, which turned out to be writing scripts for television. Eventually, he formed his own production studio, where he created, produced, and wrote over 350 scripts for 38 different shows. At the height of his studio career, he had over 2,000 people on his payroll. And after he sold his studio, he went on to write 11 best-selling novels. He is a prime example of the fact that it is not what life hands you, but how you respond to it mentally and physically. That matters most. I am looking for a lot of men who have an infinite capacity to not know what can't be done. You have to give up, I can't. The phrase I can't is the most powerful force of negation in the human psyche. If you are going to be successful, you need to give up the phrase, I can't, and all of its cousins, such as, I wish I were able to. The words I can't actually disempower you. They actually make you weaker when you say them. In seminars, a technique called kinesiology is used to test people's muscle strength as they say different phrases. They put their left arm out to their side, and it is pushed down to see what their normal strength is. Then they pick something they think they can't do, such as I can't play the piano, and say it out loud. The arm is pushed down again. It is always weaker. Then they say, I can do it, and their arm is stronger. Your brain is designed to solve any problem and reach any goal that you give it. The words you think and say actually affect your body. We see that in toddlers. When you were a toddler, there was no stopping you. You thought you could climb up on anything. No barrier was too big for you to attempt to overcome. But little by little, your sense of invincibility is conditioned out of you by the emotional and physical abuse that you receive from your family, friends, and teachers until you no longer believe you can. You must take responsibility for removing I can't from your vocabulary. In the 80s, a seminar was attended in which participants learned to walk on burning coals. When they began, they were all afraid that they would not be able to do it, that they would burn the soles of their feet. As part of the seminar, they wrote down every other I can't that they had. I can't find the perfect job. I can't be a millionaire. I can't find the perfect mate, and then threw them onto the burning coals and watched them go up in flames. 2 hours later, 350 people walked on the burning coals without anybody getting burned. That night they all learned that just like the belief that they couldn't walk on burning coals without getting burned was a lie, every other limiting belief about their abilities was also a lie. Don't waste your life believing you can't. In 1977, a 63-year-old woman picked up the back end of a car to get it off her grandson's arm. Before that time, she had never lifted anything heavier than a 50-pound bag of pet food. An author interviewed her after reading about her in a tabloid. When he got to her home, she kept resisting any attempts to talk about what she called the event. She kept asking him to eat breakfast and call her granny, which he did. Finally, he got her to talk about the event. She said she didn't like to think about it because it challenged her beliefs about what she could and couldn't do, about what was possible. She said, if I was able to do this when I didn't think I could, what does that say about the rest of my life? Have I wasted it? He convinced her that her life was not yet over and that she could still do whatever she wanted to do. He asked her what she wanted to do, what her passion was. She said she had always loved rocks. She had wanted to study geology, but her parents hadn't had enough money to send both her and her brother to college, so her brother had one out. At 63, with a little coaching, she decided to go back to school to study geology. She eventually got her degree and went on to teach at a local community college. Don't wait until you are 63 to decide that you can do anything you want. Don't waste years of your life. Decide that you are capable of doing anything you want and start working toward it now. It's all about attitude. When a baseball great was 70, a reporter asked him, what do you think you'd hit if you were playing these days? He had a lifetime batting average of 367 and said, about 290, maybe 300 died. The reporter replied, that's because of the travel, the night games, the artificial turf, and all the new pitches like the slider, right? No. He said, it's because I am 70. Now that's believing in yourself. Don't assume you need a college degree. Here's another statistic showing that belief in yourself is more important than knowledge, training, or schooling. 20% of millionaires never set foot in college, and 21 of the 222 listed as billionaires in 2003 never got their college diplomas. 2 never even finished high school. So although education and a commitment to lifelong learning are essential to success, a formal degree isn't a requirement. This is true even in the high-tech world of the internet. A CEO dropped out of college, and at the time of this writing was worth $18 billion. And another dropped out of college and later founded a major software company. Today, he is considered one of the richest men in the world with a net worth of over $46 billion. Even a vice president dropped out of college. When you realize that many high-level politicians, wealthy individuals, actors, musicians, and athletes are all college dropouts, you see that you can start from anywhere and create a successful life for yourself. What others think about you is none of your business. You have to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's what makes you a winner. If having others believing in you and your dream was a requirement for success, most of us would never accomplish anything. You need to base your decisions about what you want to do on your goals and desires, not the goals, desires, opinions, and judgments of your parents, friends, spouse, children, and coworkers. Quit worrying what other people think about you and follow your heart. The ATD 40/60 rule: when you're 18, you worry about what everybody is thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a darn what anybody thinks of you. When you're 60, you realize nobody's been thinking about you at all. Surprise, surprise! Most of the time, nobody's thinking about you at all. They are too busy worrying about their own lives. And if they are thinking about you at all, they are wondering what you are thinking about them. People think about themselves, not you. Think about it. All the time you are wasting worrying about what other people think about your ideas, your goals, your clothes, your hair, and your home could all be better spent on thinking about and doing the things that will achieve your goals.